As you all know, there are many EXEs when it comes to the Sonic.EXE universe. Some of them are really cool concept characters, while other ones are complete monsters and nightmares. But out of all the EXEs, one of them has to be the strongest. In this video, we'll be going over the strongest EXE ever to be shown light, and who he is and what he does. If you're wondering who this beast is, well, it's none other than the Allfather. Now, without further ado, let's begin with who the Allfather is. For the Allfather's lore, we don't know exactly where he comes from, but it's most likely the Void, as if with a lot of other EXEs. And out of the Void, he's most likely made out of dark matter or antimatter. Now, the Allfather technically has many different forms, but he chooses to use Sonic's into something that people can recognize him as. But originally, the Allfather wasn't his actual name. Before, he was known as the Forgotten. But you know, you can't really be forgotten when literally your whole thing is the more people of you, the more stronger you get. And that comes into how he's the most powerful. The Allfather's whole gimmick is he's not actually a demon. He's an otherworldly being that was created, and the more people that know of him, the stronger he gets. In his original lore, he was technically the beginning of all EXEs. This meaning that every EXE you've seen so far was created by the Allfather. He was the founder / creator of these creatures. But within his new lore, the more people that know of him, the better, stronger, and just overall more interesting he gets. This means that me talking to him right now, as if you don't know of him, if you remember his name or just at least know of him, he gets more powerful. And with this comes many consequences, for the fact that he only sees humanity as puppets. Plus, he won't actually kill humanity like the other EXEs who like to torture people, but instead uses them as pawns so he can gain more strength. Not only this, he has infinite power because of this, as more and more people know of him, the stronger and stronger he gets, and he is also completely immortal, which means you cannot eliminate him in any normal means. Now with other EXEs, for example Lord.EXE, which many people say is the strongest, Lord.EXE's whole thing is he's just an all-powerful demon thing. He's also known to have limitless power as well. But the thing that comes in is if you know the Allfather, he gets stronger. And since all the EXEs are well aware of his existence, they all know who the Allfather is, and that means he's most likely stronger than them. This is why we look inside of games like Outcome Memories, for example, or Sonic.EXE Robloxia. Inside of Outcome Memories, him and Lord.EXE, which is the number 1 and number 2 strongest EXEs, are the only ones who came to that universe willingly. Instead of being invited like the rest of the EXEs, they just showed up on their own accord. Now since Lord.EXE and the Allfather are around the same age, they would be similar in power, but since the Allfather is always getting stronger and stronger, and Lord.EXE really has no means of getting stronger, he is the strongest. And including this horrifying fact is that when he was first created and got sent to the human world, he also was able to create an online appearance. This is where the original name of a Forgotten came from. He was kind of like an internet host, where basically when people heard of him, it would make him more strong, but since he was a hoax, many people didn't believe he was real. Meanwhile, he actually was. And as it says inside of his wiki, he is an unknown ancient entity who sustains himself by spreading the influence across various forms of media on the internet. This also means, for example, seeing a photo of him considers making him more powerful. Just any part of his existence being acknowledged makes him stronger. But before we continue, I want to say make sure to like and subscribe, so we have more content like this. I'm trying out something new today instead of a ranking video or something, more of a lore video, so tell me what you think down below. But anyways, let's continue. With all of his power and stuff, he actually created a Roblox game known as Sonic.EXE Robloxia. Although being released last year, this game was meant to look like an original Roblox game from around 2014, where everything was kind of just blocky. But within the game itself, you can find many things that are connected to the Allfather, and in this, you can see the Allfather's faker form, which just looks like Sonic, just slightly different. And because of that, he has the power to perfectly master disguise, but he chooses to use this form just because. Now, inside of his game, we find out that actually he's able to make perfect replicas of himself, like clones. As you can see here, this is what one of his clothes turned into. I'll get to it a little bit. Absolute abomination. But he's perfectly able to clone himself, and I'm pretty sure they don't share the same conscience. This means that if one of their connections gets severed, then technically there's just 2 Allfathers now. But of course, it doesn't always work out like that. Once you go through a secret area inside of the game, you find yourself in this Eden area. Once you go through a secret path inside of the game, you find out that nothing is all that it seems. Once you get to the first person section and you start playing as Tails, you find yourself walking around this underground photography. Inside of this dungeon area, you can find many other Tails such as yourself laying all around, and this is meant to symbolize the cult behind the Allfather. Yes, not only is he powerful himself, but he has many followers, since by definition, he is the strongest thing to ever be created, since he created by nothing. And since there's nothing, there's something, and that is him. But unfortunately, Allfather didn't really like this, even though he was getting more power from this, so he decides to send one of his clones himself. When his clone shows up, he ends up eliminating all the tails, but then gets locked in there with the bodies. When this happened, he started mutating into this absolute abomination, which is displayed right now. Now, this abomination is the Allfather, and isn't the Allfather at the same time. The reason why is because technically it's a clone of him. But since the clones are literally perfect copies of himself, it is the Allfather, but just corrupted basically. And also, beforehand, once you get to the void area, inside Sonic.EXE Robloxia, you can see many people just walking around, kind of like in an empty void. And these are all the people who have failed the Allfather. Since they failed the Allfather, or their god, they have no sense of purpose or direction, so they're endlessly just searching. And while all of this is happening, this is all in his own universe. That's right, not only is the Allfather stronger from us, but also inside of his own in-game universes. He's just basically multiversal. I say this because it's technically taken place inside of Eden, not to be confused with a biblical Eden. This Eden was created by the Allfather and was meant to be a resting place for his followers kind of, but as you can see, not really. Now, finally at this tale of Sonic.EXE Robloxia, which is basically the original lore for the Allfather, since his old lore was swapped, you show up at the end of Eden, where basically you and the Guardian of the Soul, don't really know who he is yet since we haven't gotten more games, basically tell you something more is awaiting, or something else is coming. The Allfather seeks out great power in other individuals, who can basically serve him. Because the stronger the individual is, the more power he gets from them because they know him. And since the player has been going down a rabbit hole of playing his game, he's falling perfectly into pawn of what the Allfather has planned. This means not only can he create his own universes, trap souls, and much more, he can also use the real life world to influence stuff. Like I said, he has an online presence technically, so he's technically able to create anything he wants on the online world and probably influence people IRL. Sonic.EXE Robloxia is a perfect example. It was created by the Allfather to basically be a normal Sonic game, but if you dive deeper, you find out who he truly is. And believe me, this monster is truly evil. Not only this, Allfather also has two of his own guardians. Since basically Eden is his domain, he created two guardians to run the place and be responsible for it while he's doing whatever. First one, I'll put up an image here, is Kokoro. Basically, she's one of the guardians, and she represents the heart, allowing the victims to feel emotions within Eden. And without her, all the victims of the Allfather would just be empty husks, as we see inside the void area. Well, here is Recon, and he's the one to represent the soul, where basically he flows the amount of souls into Eden. Like I said, the Allfather is technically an alternate version of 2011X, or a new take, and he theoretically is God. He uses these terms from the original just because of how much power he has. And unlike other EXEs who want to toy with the victims, for him, he normally does a much simpler approach. If he feels like it, he might toy with them, kind of like what you see 2011X does or Sonic.EXE, but most of the time he's straightforward with it. If he has no more use for his followers or anything, as you see inside Sonic Robloxia, he just kills them. He is still way eviler than most of the other Sonic.EXEs, but this makes him a little bit more merciful because the other ones want humanity to suffer, while he only assumes them to be pawns for him own. And because of all of these abilities, the Allfather can do many things, like I said, inside the virtual world, his own world, and the real world, able to manipulate whatever he wants into his own plan. But then again, let's look through all of his abilities. First, he has basically spatial manipulation, universal manipulation, multiversal manipulation. He's able to duplicate himself, make perfect clones, have powers, most likely invisibility, able to come to the real world, and just so much more. He basically has a catalog of ability. And with this, he can practically do whatever he wants, because I mean, if you have the power of everything, then you can basically do everything. What his plans is at the time, we do not know. Since like I said, the Allfather did get a rework, and this is what he is now, but he is still developing his lore. And yes, the only official media we do have for him is Sonic.EXE Robloxia, which is the game I was explaining. Now, if you want to see a playthrough of that, make sure to comment down below. I would love to play that with you, but never know, just saying. And even if the Allfather's plan is not known, he is still the strongest EXE that will exist as of this time. Unless if you count Sunky, which is a joke character, which I don't. And like I said, you might think it's still Lord X, but since Lord X knows of the Allfather, assuming the Allfather is stronger than him, and since technically all of humanity basically knows of him at this time, Well, basically, he's the strongest creature to ever exist. He is said to be a lot more calm or reserved than normal Sonic.EXE, but as you see inside the examples, if he needs to be, he is definitely a violent villain. But once again, I'll say it again, he is not technically a demon. He's just this being that was created from someplace, sometime, and showed up here on Earth. Fun, isn't it? So if you're ever face to face with the Allfather or Forgotten, believe me, you do not want to be a pawn inside of his plans. But with that is the strongest EXE that has ever been created, which is the Allfather. I also really can't wait to see what he comes out with next. As of now, we only have Sonic Robloxia for his original game, but it's going to be cool to see what happens inside of El Memory since he is a confirmed EXE inside that game, and more about his lore and any new games that might come out. I'm hoping we get another game before the end of this year, but you know, those are high hopes. Now if there's anything I'm missing, make sure to comment down below and tell me who do you think is the strongest EXE, since you might not agree with me. I want to thank you all for making the Allfather stronger and joining in today's video. But anyways, that's going to be it for today's video. Hope you all liked and enjoyed. If I don't see you in game, then I'll see you next video. So, see you later.